Thanks for tuning in to the HR Uprising podcast. I'm your host, Lucinda Carney. The HR Uprising is focused on helping forward-thinking people professionals deliver real lasting value in their organisations. I'm a chartered psychologist, speaker and trainer, and recently authored the best-selling business book, How to Be a Change Superhero. My day job is founder and CEO of software and training business Actus. This gives me the opportunity to work with other businesses like yours. We are focused on building a better workplace for people wherever they are located, with the help of our performance, learning and talent management software and our training and consultancy services. Every week on the podcast, I will be covering different topics and challenges, joined by relevant experts and real-life people professionals. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoy and get value from this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's HR Uprising podcast. And this week I have author, podcaster and keynote speaker Laura Best with me, a Brit in the US, been over there a number of years, and an expert in all things passion and performance, bringing your passion to work, and I guess using it to enrich your life. I know you did also lead on a sort of a project which was Passion Collective that I was looking at as well, which is something that you've also been involved in, Laura. I guess that's my little synopsis of what I know about you, but let me hand to you to introduce yourself more fully.
Well, hello, Lucinda. This is fantastic. I'm so excited, and it's so lovely to speak to another Brit. I love you Americans, but it's wonderful to speak to another Brit. So yes, gosh, where to begin? I moved to America when I was 26. I went to Warwick Uni and stayed around that area for about 5 or 6 years, building a career in PR back in the day. And then decided to move to America in my mid-20s to pursue my dream of working in advertising. Ding. And, I thought, like many of us do in our mid-20s, that, give it a go for a few years, see what happens. I was super excited. And here we are in 2026. Isn't it funny how
quite excited, Laura?
Yeah, I know. I very much am excited. I guess my point is, I never even imagined that I would still be living in America, 26 years later. And I'm sure some of your listeners can relate to that. It's like those sliding door moments, right, in our life. So over the years so I'm in Minneapolis in Minnesota, and it was a fantastic advertising town back in the day. And it's still a really great city for business, companies like 3M and Target. I built a really successful career in marketing leadership. I worked for all sorts of companies like American Express, Ameriprise Financial. I worked at some fantastic, sexy agencies in digital technology, all of that jazz. You know how we do that in our 20s and 30s. We're sort of piecing together this career and we're trying to roll with the punches and really figure out what it is we love. And I got to this point in 2014, so it's 12 years ago now, a long time ago, where I just had my daughter. She was 3 years old, my daughter Sophia, and I still had, the big job, and really trying my best to serve everyone all of the time. And guess who I wasn't serving? Myself. But on the outside, this is what I say, on the outside, everything was looking great. And if you'd met me back then, you would have thought, oh, wow, she's, doing everything she wants and everything looks good. I had the career that I always really wanted and that I built and sacrificed for. I, had beautiful husband, beautiful family. I was living in America. And yet I got to this point where I literally felt like I was flatlining inside. So on the outside, it was energy and showing up, and we're really good at putting our face on, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of gender, it's like we show up and we're high performers, so we do our best. And my last name is Best, so I don't have much choice. But I really did hit this wall, and it was burnout, definitely, but it was more than the mental and physical exhaustion. I realized that I had become truly disconnected from the work that I used to love. In building this career, I'd become very distant from it. But I also had no idea actually what that even was anymore, especially after so much change in the industry I was working in. I got myself into this role of a leader in marketing and technology, and I didn't love it. And that came along with this sense of almost guilt
Yeah.
because we're meant to be very grateful for all of this. And we are grateful. And I was grateful. And yet I wanted more, but I didn't know what the more was. And I also had no idea how to get more into my life because I was burnt out. So I was at this point where I was like, well, what on earth are we supposed to do as high performing professionals, parents, people who want to make a difference? How on earth are you supposed to do this? It's got to be possible. The thing is, back in 2014, no one was really talking about it. I say that, this is the time before Brene Brown was on Netflix and everybody was talking about vulnerability. Like we weren't really back then.
No.
So I decided to start Passion Collective. I actually ended up leaving the job in 2014, and I started consulting, and I started Passion Collective at the same time. And initially it was a small community just for women here in the Twin Cities, because I was often the only in the room, the only woman. And I love the guys. I've got a brother. I worked very well in that environment, but I really missed the community of women. And I wanted deeper conversation. I wanted us to explore together what it truly meant to do more of what we loved in our life. Like, how are we supposed to do this? And can we help each other do that? So in the early days, Passion Collective was very much a true community support, linking arms together to say, we can figure this out. And over the years, I grew that to be, we're now a global community. Actually, at one point, I think we had 12,000 passionados in our community from all over the world. We've done all sorts of events, coaching programs. At one point, I ran a grant program over 4 years that gave cash and coaching to women all over the world. So we funded a women's community in Ukraine. We funded a dance program in a refugee camp in Uganda. And all of these incredible women and actually we ended up getting applications from more than 10,000 people in more than 50 countries. And people, not just women, everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that was my point when I realized, this isn't just Laura Best wants a bit more passion in her life. This is somehow I've hit upon this universal need and desire to not just make an impact and help others, but to feel different in our days and to really rediscover the things inside of us that truly make us feel alive. People were wanting passion. And so I read thousands and thousands of these applications for these grants, right? And I saw it right there. So I began to realize, and over the years, I was doing a ton of research on passion. Like, is this just me or am I crazy? Absolutely not. Passion, and we can talk way more about this. Passion is very much a well-researched and well-documented concept and idea and behavior and thing. I don't know whether you can see here, but I got a zillion books behind me. Many of these are academic books on organizational psychology. I started to get really deep into all of that. And after a while, I realized that I had something to say about this. And I also realized that there was a lot of misunderstanding in the workplace around passion and the role that passion has in helping companies succeed, but also helping us be happier in our working life. So that's when I began doing keynote speaking and getting out onto these large stages and sharing the word. Yes. And I also wrote my book, Born to Buzz, which came out last year. And that was intended to be a practical, inspiring guide to people who wanted to rediscover their passions. So yeah, I guess you could say that my passion is helping other people find theirs.
That would be a very nice way of doing it. In terms of, there's lots of ways we can go into, but I think if we stay with the passion topic, although I am really interested in managing to get those grants out to people, but that's probably a bit of a distraction. Well done on that. So in terms of passion, if we think about this in the workplace, our audience, HR professionals who probably may well have lost the love themselves. I mean, again, like we've all started a career. We were talking off camera about, you started in advertising and PR and that sort of thing, and then it became something else. I started in learning and development and ended up in something else. And suddenly you go, oh, where is I've lost my buzz or whatever it might be, my mojo. And I suppose that's what I was thinking. Would everybody describe passion? Is that the only word, or what would be a more business word that people would understand what you mean by that? If an HR person was talking to a staid old group of people and they're like, passion's just a bit too woo-woo up in the air.
Mm.
What other language would you use, or how would you define it?
Well, first of all, I would print off a ton of the academic studies and give them to the said state C-level people and say, no, actually, it's a real thing. But if I wasn't in that particular situation, another way to think about passion is that it's a motivational force. I mean, literally, it's a motivational force. Passion can be a little bit confusing for people to wrap their arms around because, on the one hand, yeah, it's this motivational force that not only helps us jump out of bed. I mean, sometimes people say that about purpose, right? Purpose is what gets you up in the morning. Great. But if you're halfway through your day and knackered and you've got a ton of boring paperwork to do, what is it that keeps you going and keeps you sustained with this thing? Often it's not purpose. You know, purpose can be a grounding, noble thing that we've got, but passion is truly the motivational force that can propel us forwards, upwards, sideways. So sometimes that's a helpful way for HR leaders to think about it, or even talk to senior stakeholders about it, because what company doesn't want their workforce motivated and engaged, right? I mean, that's what we're all craving right now. And there's all these studies, right? There's the very famous Gallup study that talked about how, what was it? 80% of the world's workforce, I think it was their State of the Workplace report last year, said 80% of the workforce are not engaged with their work. I mean, I'm probably even underselling that. I think it may even be even more, which is incredible to think about, right? Passion also, though, so if you think about it as an energy or, you know, something that moves you forward, and a feeling, something inside of you that sort of carries you forward and through things and sustains you. And also, passion can be a verb or a noun, right? So your passion could be, I don't know, mentoring people, or, God, I'm really passionate about data and accuracy. So that's why I try really hard on this project at work. It can be a
I know many
thing.
people are passionate about data and accuracy, but
I don't know. I'm speaking to a
That's
group
not
of
my
CPAs. I know. I'm speaking to a group of CPAs tomorrow,
maybe
though, certified accountants. So
that's
you never
interesting.
know.
That is interesting, actually, because again, we were talking
Yeah.
about this off camera, and I wonder. So I get the thing. There's a sort of passion could fuel purpose. So passion could be the thing that keeps you going in you know, on the way to purpose. It's an energy, it's a drive, it's motivation, what gets you out of bed. Your Gallup and the thing is willingness to go the extra mile, you know, for employees. So someone who has passion potentially in their role as intrinsic motivation to go the extra mile for the business, which is great. And I was wondering again, so you asked me earlier what my passions were, and I said, oh God, let me think about this. Like, could you ask the camera? And where I ended up going back to was stuff where I found myself passionate about work when it's aligned with my values. And I knew what my values are because I did those in my 20s, and I did 7 Habits and things like that. So
Yeah.
and I was just thinking that maybe that aligns. So I would feel a passion. Sorry, I'm going on a bit off on one. One of my very good friends has she just met she's very high up in one of the big 4 firms, so she's not got a small job as it is, kids doing A levels, etc. And she's just spent 3 nights doing this passion project. Her husband had a stroke 6 years ago, and she's setting up this stroke charity, and she's doing a stroke app, la la la. Now that for me, that's a total passion for her. It's passionate, she's purpose, she's total drive, and it's got meaning, I think, because of the personal aspect of it. But it's also in line with her values again, which might go back to making a difference or etc. So I just feel like they're all connected. I don't know if you've got a more elegant way of linking it, how you would see it linked with personal values.
I think that's a really elegant way to put it. What I see though is sometimes people get a bit, there's nothing wrong with values and we all need them. We all need clear values, right? But sometimes people get a little bit hung up on values if they start there. It's like, right, my value is integrity. Okay, so what's my passion then? It's like,
Yeah.
or my value is, and so that I think values are intrinsic to who we are and how we show up. I think passions can be another way in, essentially. And this is why I love the topic and the platform of passion, because we can have many, 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 many passions, right? And they can be sort of what we might classify as silly, sort of guilty pleasure-y type stuff that no one ever sees. That can be a passion. And then also we could have a passion as a CEO for changing lives because we work in healthcare, right? It can be huge passions, and we call that being multi-passionate. And an easier way to sometimes think about passions is actually from the academics. There's a very well-known guy called Robert Vallerand and his colleagues. who did this research about 20 years ago now, that came up with something called the Dualistic Model of Passion. And I find this absolutely fascinating stuff to dig into, and I'm sure many of your HR leader listeners will do as well, because it really gets to the root of what passion truly is. Because this is what passion suffers from a bit, right? People think, oh, it's woo-woo, it's self-indulgent is a word I hear a lot. And we're self-indulgent to want to enjoy your work and be passionate about it. You just got to grind it out. You just got to do it. We got results to get, that sort of thing. Now, Robert Vallerand and co., this dualistic model of passion, it's essentially two different types of passion, right? So there's something called harmonious passion, and there's another side of it, which is obsessive passion. Now, harmonious passion typically is the type of passion that lights you up, that complements things in your life, helps you help other people. Typically, it's where you're connected to yourself a little bit more, to other people, or to an idea. It also tends to give you autonomy in some shape or form. So that can be work or personal. And also it can give you a sense of competence. It doesn't mean that you've got to be brilliant at a passion to love it, but it gives you this sense of wanting to learn and this desire for curiosity and sort of wanting to get better at something. And it, again, fuels you forward. An obsessive passion is, as the name suggests, very dangerous, damaging to relationships, careers, yourself. It can show up as a good, harmonious passion, but can get obsessive. And we don't want the obsessive passion. So when I'm talking to groups, when I'm in businesses, we're looking at harmonious passions and how we can really nurture those. And we think about things like, well, when do you feel most connected to yourself? When do you feel most connected to other people? And what does that actually feel like for you? And it's funny because in the workplace, we didn't used to talk very much about feelings, right? And certainly people of our generation were always taught, at least I was, your goals should be based on what you want to acquire. So whether that's your job title, corner office, cute husband, BMW, whatever, right? Whatever it is, what you want to acquire versus how do you want to feel? And so it's an interesting question to ask yourself. How do I want to feel in my career, in my job? It's not a woo-woo self-indulgent thing to be thinking about, because if you can better define what passion feels like to you, so when you're doing something that you truly love, when you're engaged in that harmonious passion, what does it feel like to you? Like my word, so when I work with groups, we come up with a word, we define it. And it's actually quite a tricky exercise because passion feels different to everybody. Some people say it makes them feel calm and peaceful. Other people will say that it gets them fired up and they sort of have this, that's where advocacy comes from, right? It's sort of like this fire to sort of fight and change something. My word is fizzy, F-I-Z-Z-Y or Z-Z-Y, depending on who's listening. It's this sense of fizziness. When I'm doing something that I love, I feel fizzy. And I know it sounds silly and stupid, but I don't care. Because when I focus on the fact that when I feel this way and when my passion shows up in this way, I'm actually helping myself and helping other people, then it becomes essential, really, for a company's success, but also my success. And science has proven, by the way, Robert Vallerand's got a ton of books on this, and there's additional research that shows that literally there are huge mental and physical benefits to pursuing harmonious passion. And if you think about it, if you're doing something that you love, even if it's just for an hour, so let's just say you've got your regular day job, but then you are part of a committee at work for an hour a week. Maybe it's a mentoring committee, or you're helping put on an event, or you're designing something different, a secret project you're involved with. It's not your day job maybe, but you're doing this thing you love. Think of how you feel. Think of how you show up. Think of how you're willing to help others and the impact that that has for other people. So I know that's a lot around the idea of passion. Values are really intrinsic into that. I think we all know that when we're engaging something that doesn't align with our values, we know it feels off. We know it does. Sometimes, though, if we've got mortgages, bills to pay, kids to feed, we got to do the job. We got to do the things. But there's only so long that you can keep going with activities that do not sit well with what you believe to be true about the world, which is truly what values are all about. And put another way, passions can help us bring those values to life, I just wouldn't necessarily start with the values. I would start with how you want to feel, and that idea of harmonious passion, and seeking out activities that give you that connection, that competence, and that idea of control or autonomy.
I'm just reflecting on what you were talking about there, and it certainly it's deeper thought is there. So thinking of the values thing, just because that was what my routing would have been on it. There are values, like you say, integrity and things like that. There are values which are very sort of calm and steady, and I wouldn't say they are compatible with passion. But then my top value, as I'm saying, is making a difference and the feeling with that. So my example of that being, so I was literally on a call with somebody this morning, and this is interesting, but they won't know who they are. It was a kind of get to know you conversation, and had a nice chat, and actually I wasn't desperately interested, honestly, which was awful. But then later, I ended up sort of saying, well, end up switching into a bit of coaching because they were coming up with business proposition. And then I realised at the end of the call, he went, oh my God, that was so useful. Thank you so much. And then I go, oh, your thing about fizzy, it had a little sort of buzz or flutter.
There you go.
Oh, I've actually made a difference. So suddenly, so that's where you go. But so for me, making a difference is a very forwards, and also achievement is a value I have, and fun is a value, and variety and change. Those are things that would fit into my stable of values. But I would say they're forward going values. Whereas I've also got, security is a value, but it's almost more of a, hierarchy of it's lower in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, literally, and so it's not a passion. So maybe we're almost going self-actualization if we're going to really bring it in.
If we're really going full on Maslow, I love that. I mean, there's so many models, right? And you've had some incredible people like Julie Kratz on the podcast too, who talked about much of these sort of theories and practices. I mean, it really is a jigsaw puzzle, I think, for individuals. So if you're an individual employee, the one thing you absolutely must do is get clearer about what it is you love about your work. Don't wait for your boss to tell you what you should care about. I mean, yes, of course, we're going to care about the business performance and the business mission, but what do you love to do? Of course, there are going to be a bazillion things in your day that you have to do, and you will do with utmost professionalism and hopefully a smile on your face, and you'll do it well. But what do you love? And
but
so
you're going to be more successful if they're aligned, aren't you? That's also the thing. If you're aligned with doing things that you're good at, you're going to be better at it because it's going to feed it, because you find it rewarding, and that's a key.
And the sweet spot really is once you've done more work as an individual on here are the things that I love for whatever reason, whether it's this feels aligned to my values, or it's a different way of grounding what you love in the way that feels good to you. Then the sweet spot is really figuring out how your passions can truly help build the business that you're working within, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're working for a giant company like American Express, right? There may not be a ton of wiggle room in your job description or frankly, your week, your time to suddenly take on 300 new things just because you love them. But if you can get clearer on what you love and you practice, get good at articulating that to your people leader, your boss, and you have that collaboration on, that's interesting, Laura. I had no idea that you love to do X, Y, and Z. You know what? Jim just started a committee on that last week. Would you be willing to spend an hour a month helping them with mentoring people? I had no idea. A lot of this is, again, the self-actualization piece of it, of realizing this transformational effect that we can have and really coming into our own. But also it's doing enough work on our own as individuals to get clear on it. It does take a bit of courage. It takes quite a bit of work. That's why in my book, Born to Buzz, I have 12 transformational sparks, and they're written as almost like a manifesto. I just didn't want to use a political word. But they're 12 transformational sparks that you can dig into. And they're about, your sense of self-worth. They're about your relationship to comfort, about the idea that you truly need to find your people and really work on these elements of your life to get to the point where you know what lights you up, you're proud of it, you know how you can contribute in a different way, and you're able to articulate that to whether it's your boss at work or your spouse at home because you want to go to a new class or something. You might have to ask somebody for help and support, right? Getting to that point is a really wonderful place to be, because harmonious passions also are the types of activities that feel very much like us. You know, if you've ever met somebody or it's like, hi, I'm
Feel at
Laura.
home.
I'm a CFO and I'm also a triathlete. You know, you meet these people who do all the things, right? But they also, yeah, it's who they are. It's part of their identity. And that's sort of the ultimate expression. But I talk about this Venn diagram. You know, you've got your passions on the right or the left, depending on which way you're looking at the screen. And then you've got the business goals or, you know, business purpose. And then you've got, you know, the middle bit. And so if you can talk to your leader, or as an HR leader, if you can look at your teams, your group of employees, and if you better understand the passions and motivations of your employees, potentially there could be programs that you can set up to help nurture those and give your employees space and potentially resources to develop them and to connect them to the company's purpose. And that's where I get really passionate about this stuff, because so many companies, because they misunderstand passion and frankly aren't willing to do some of the work to dig into it, they have purpose because purpose is nice and safe. You know, and as a marketing leader, I have sat in so many rooms where we've wordsmithed the purpose statement to death.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get really good ones. Most of the time, the purpose is typically written to, you know, please a lot of people, right? But we need it. We need the purpose statement. You have to connect that purpose to the passions of your people and vice versa, because otherwise, how is it going to come alive? It can't just all be on strengths and the grind and putting in more hours and delivering more. How does that happen? It happens when people bring their unique passions to the table and they're allowed to use those ideas and skills in a different way. So it's really a huge missed opportunity that so many companies, you know, hopefully they'll be
and I can see it
taking.
at work. And also, just you mentioned you had a daughter, and it's actually really relevant just for us as people. If you start to lose your way, I think if you had kids and you kind of hand yourself over to them, and then they become teen and things like that, to actually still have something. You think about empty nest syndrome, or you think about people getting sort of depressed at various stages of life. So I've been plunged into darkness here. It's like thunder and lightning outside. Anyone who's watching is on video.
Oh my God!
It's only 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's very dramatic.
But any thunder and lightning going on in the background, that's what's going on. But you know, it's not just important at work, it's important at home in terms of this, to understand the passions, and put some energy into them, because it's going to re-energize you. I mean, you talked about in 2014 you were burnt out. You know, I guess, and if someone listening to this is feeling a bit that way and they're thinking, I don't know what my passion is. You're talking about, I get the concept, but I don't know where to find it, because, you know, maybe they have got to that point where they're disconnected from themselves. I mean, you asked the question earlier, you thought, oh, when do you feel most connected to yourself or others? I think that's quite a hard question, actually. And I don't know whether I'd know the answer myself to that. So on that basis, as we're kind of getting towards the end, how about if you were treat us like we're on, you know, we're on stage with you. If you've got to give us a few questions or food thought or little sort of steps we could take to take ourselves on the journey to understand ourselves better and what our passions are, what would you advise?
Yeah, oh, we could talk for so long on this, but I know we've only got a few minutes. You know, what you say is so true. And the reason that it's so difficult for many of us, and I know because I've lived this journey, the reason why we can't answer that question, either what is our passion or I don't know what I'm connected to anymore, is that we're giving everything of ourselves to other people. Even if we're sat there for an hour watching our favorite Netflix show or whatever it is, we're still giving pretty much all of it to everybody else, especially women or underrepresented groups who often have to take on a lot of the extra tasks in the home and at work. So first of all, it's recognizing that you're feeling disconnected for a reason. In my book, I talk about a study, I think it's from the Surgeon General in the US, that talked about how loneliness kills more people than cigarettes. It's disconnection.
So longevity is linked to social interaction is one of the things linked to longevity as well, isn't it? Which would be the similar sort of thing.
Exactly. And we all know that we won't go on and on about social media and modern life and COVID and all of that. I know you've talked about that a lot. But part of this is that we don't give ourselves the time to reflect, explore, and try new things. And I know because I've been there. You're looking at your week, it's Sunday night, you're already feeling like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to get all this done. Maybe you're sticking a load of laundry on at 11 o'clock because you've suddenly realized the kids need something for tomorrow and their football kit's dirty, whatever it is. And the last thing that you can think about is, oh, I wonder what my passions are. But this is precisely why we need to take the time for ourselves. Now, I'm sure everyone's like, yeah, great, Laura, that's fantastic. I don't have the time. You do have the time. If I were to give you an hour, so here's an exercise. If I were to give you an hour this week out of nowhere, the question is, what would you do with it? And that's what people can't answer, right? So an exercise around that, assume I've given you an hour. So everybody listening, you've got an hour this week that you can create out of somewhere, right? And there are ways to do that, by the way, which we can talk about separately. What I'd love for you to do is something called my reach back exercise. So sometimes when we're stuck in our busy lives, we're trying to focus forward and trying to be present at the same time, trying to take care of ourselves and everybody else, right? Pause for a minute. I want you to reflect back on a time in your life or a moment where you did feel something akin to passion. When did you really, really love something? When was the last time you really, really loved something? And this, by the way, can be an interesting emotional exercise. Because when you do this, sometimes you realize, oh boy, I haven't enjoyed anything in my work for the last 10 years. Or, I haven't taken a trip anywhere for 15 years because of the kids. I used to love that. And there can be this feeling of, have I failed? Am I in the wrong place? Don't worry, keep with it, stick with it. What I want you to do is think about a time when you love something. So in the book, I talk about skiing, right? When I was in my 20s, I used to do quite a few winter sports. I actually used to snowboard quite a bit for what it's worth. I wasn't very good, but I used to snowboard. Now, I used to absolutely flipping love it. Haven't done it for decades. Why? Because I keep telling myself, too old, not fit enough, only the young cool kids do that, haven't got the thing.
It hurts.
Right? It hurts. I fall over all the time. I'm too old for that, blah, 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 blah. But I really used to love it. This reach back exercise in the book, and you can do it yourself with a pen and paper, put the thing in the middle. So, right, snowboarding in the middle, or whatever it is to do with a work thing that you used to love. Maybe it was a project that you were on some years ago that you had the chance to participate in and you kind of loved it and you haven't done it anymore. Then I want you to mind map this. So all mind mapping is just writing out different parts of that passion that lit you up. What was it about this thing that you loved? So let's take snowboarding or skiing. Maybe it was being outside. Maybe it was the chairlifts, which was so fun. Maybe it's the fashionable gear. Maybe it's the après ski. Maybe it's the nature. You get the idea. Just write all that stuff around the thing in the middle and connect it all. Now, I want you to look at that. And first of all, remember that you used to love this thing. But it's okay if you don't want to do snowboarding anymore. Life gets in the way. We get older. You might be in a totally different chapter of life. But then I want you to look at the other bubbles. Are there components of that passion that you could bring back to still feel the same way or to do something in a different but slightly similar way to what you were doing? So maybe you look at this and you're like, nature. Oh my God, I used to love nature. I don't get out in nature anymore. This weekend, you can take a trip to the local nature reserve and it fills you up and it makes you so happy. It gives you that peace you're looking for, right? I'm using a very basic leisure example.
No, that works.
Here.
You're basically finding the passion itself is just an example, but the sort of sparks that flew off it, you can generate through other circumstance.
And this is what it's all about. It's about generating ideas, remembering that you have this inside of you. It has not disappeared. I hear from so many people, oh, I just don't know who I am anymore. I've really lost my sense of self. I get it. That was me. But you've got this inside of you. You've got to, so the first piece is sort of digging through that and coming up with some fun stuff and not being too hard on yourself. Then the second piece is what I call proudly dabbling. So dabbling has got a rather bad rap. Sometimes when you dabble in things, people think you're not doing it well enough or you're not committed enough. Oh, I was just dabbling on that. It's nothing. We tend to dismiss ourselves. Take the idea, so let's say it's the nature thing. You're going to dabble a bit. You're going to proudly dabble. Okay, so what does nature mean for you now? What is it about nature that's truly going to light you up? There's a bazillion ways that you could get involved in nature, right? Try some stuff. If you don't like it, pay attention to that feeling inside. So for me, I'd be checking, am I feeling the fizzy?
Yeah.
I do not. Oh, okay. Move on to the next activity.
Yeah.
Proudly dabble and then tell people what you're doing. Proudly share the exploration and the curiosity that you're just sprinkling into your week. Sprinkling, that's it. Because very few people can take the whole week to pursue their passions. We're taking an hour here and an hour there. But those two examples can really help you. So reaching back to remember what you used to love and then proudly dabbling, they can really help you explore work and life passions without feeling bad, and without
there's not putting pressure. You're not putting pressure on
no
it.
pressure.
In some ways, it's no pressure. It's just like, try it out, give it a go.
Try it out. And you know what? If you don't like it, life is too short. Move on to the next idea. No, release the shame. Have fun with it. Explore and be curious. That's really the beginning stages of rediscovering that passion inside of yourself.
Oh, Laura, it's a lovely conversation, actually, and I'm sure it will be inspiring lots of listeners to find out more. And I know they can follow you on LinkedIn, and you've got links to some of your keynotes and can hear more about what you do there. Do you want to tell people how they can get in touch with you if they want to be in touch, or obviously find out more about what you do?
Yeah, definitely. I live and die by LinkedIn in America. I mean, it's definitely a good place for that. So connect with me on LinkedIn, please. My keynote, Work Worth Loving, is the big one that I share with organizations, and that's all about bringing more of your passions into work. And I've got more about that on my website, which is passioncollective.co, not .com, .co. My book, Born to Buzz, is also available on Amazon UK and US. So we just published in the UK 2 months ago, so you can get the paperback in the UK. But yeah, please reach out, ask me your questions. I'd love to connect.
Super. Well, it's been lovely having you on the HR Uprising podcast. You've got good food for thought. I'm going to go and have a little think myself as to maybe carving out an hour to really find things that I like doing too. So that's wonderful. Thank you for joining, Laura. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Lucinda. Keep up the great work. I love this.
I really hope you found this week's episode useful and enjoyable. If you did, perhaps you could recommend us to a friend or colleague, or give us a review on your platform of choice. It really helps new listeners to find us. Now, you can access links to any of the information mentioned in this show via the website www.hruprising.com. Further free resources are also available at www.actus.co.uk. There you can also find out more about our software and training solutions. Finally, why not join our LinkedIn group, the HR Uprising, to share ideas and collaborate with other like-minded people professionals. Thank you for listening to the HR Uprising podcast.